Hey, so Elliot, the stage is all yours.
Great, great. Thanks. So, thanks for the great introduction. Lots of good content that I think is going on around, lots of good best practices, new technologies. I think lots of networking going on today. I also saw great collaboration in the chat pod, just thinking about structured and unstructured content and how to best leverage that to create the ultimate customer experience. Just a quick introduction. My name is Elliot Sedegah, product uh, strategy and product marketing for Adobe Experience Manager. I actually focus on assets, content intelligence, as well as our rich media for imagery and video. And, one of the key things that we wanted to talk about today, I think it's one of the hot topics that a lot of our customers have been talking about. We've seen it across the industry is this notion of artificial intelligence. And I think we've seen it in almost everywhere that we look. And the interesting stat is like you could probably there's no shortage of number of presentations or news articles that you see are talking about the dawn of AI. But I think one of the interesting pieces that we are starting to see is a few years ago this was very much an experiment across different product categories, whether it's consumer electronics, healthcare, retail. But the reality is a lot of that is here. And there's a quick poll that was taken last year to actually show that 33% of customers think that they're actually touching AI technology, and the reality is 77% are actually interacting with AI every day. And if we would have to run that poll again this year, we would imagine that number would be much higher because it's starting to become put into a natural way part of everything that we do. So today we're going to talk a lot more about that and how can we start to embed this more naturally into our customer experiences. And some of the ways that we're going to do that today is we're going to look at some of the Adobe technologies and some of the ways that we think about it. But this is applicable across the board. And I'll also give a few examples that we're seeing, in sort of course, everyday interaction with artificial intelligence. So, I'll start off with one, and this is one of the technologies that we've talked about very recently. We just recently talked much more around this notion of PDF. It's a document. It's one of the ultimate digital document formats that we've been talking about for decades. There's 2.5 trillion PDFs that are circling the world today. And, if you think about how this is transformed with AI, many of you probably seen how we can take these PDFs and transform it transform a digital paper document, a physical document into a PDF, just using your camera. But then recently, one of the challenges that we looked at was, well, what happens when this comes onto a mobile device? And the idea behind this mobile device is you scroll in, and that's not the optimal experience. So can you do something as intuitive as activate what we call liquid mode? So the idea is we can automatically have Adobe Sensei, our AI technology, read, parse, structure the content automatically, and then make a much more elegant experience for customers who are going to view this same information on a mobile device, which we know now, more than 70% of our customers are viewing most of the content through the mobile experience. So how are we optimizing for that mobile experience? So, taking inspirations from core products that are out there, and how can we bake that back into the digital experiences that we build? So many of us, and I'm sure this number could be higher amongst this group here, but are using or want to leverage AI to improve our customer experience. It's sort of one of the top priorities that we've seen. Gartner has done a recent survey last July, and said 59% of business and technology leaders want to leverage this technology to improve customer experience. But the downside to that is we're often seeing many of these just turn into just science projects. They often fail. They start off with a nice production, they're stuck in POC, and they try to get into development, but many of them fail at many different points. And then the questions that we ask ourselves is, why did it fail? One of the key reasons would be data quality or access to the right pieces of data. We're often spending lots of time cleaning, preparing the data for the right AI algorithms. And to do that in-house is incredibly costly, or you don't have the right personnel or tools to do that. The right personnel, like how many of us have the right machine learning or AI personnel in-house to do those technologies? You can We can pull some APIs from third-party services, but to actually develop that technology inside is very difficult. And then after you implement it, and then the AI gives you some sort of result, can you explain the outcome of that? Right. So, this is a very interesting research that came in from IDC, where they're seeing many of these reasons, many of these challenges are driving these projects to fail, and we got to do better. And if you look at the overall failure rate, one of the big pieces at the end of the day is cost, right? The cost versus the value trade-off, that equation wasn't quite there. So, we've seen that, this part could be a critical mandate to exchange our customer experiences, but the challenge is we don't know where to start. So, having limited access to the resources or operationalizing AI or just making it easy for those end users to do. And this is an overall challenge. And I think hopefully you get some inspiration from some of the things that we're doing at Adobe. At Adobe, we are leveraging what we call Adobe Sensei. So this is a technology that empowers the intelligent features in all of our products. And what I mean by all of our products, this means from our tools and technology in Creative Cloud, to our Document Cloud, as well as our Experience Cloud. All of our products, we're going to be tapping into AI, much more native experience, so that all of those challenges that we talked about that makes it difficult to get those in the hands of marketers or in the hands of creators or in the hands of content authors, make it much more easy to do. So let's talk about this. And then today what we'll do is we'll talk more specifically about some of the challenges that we're seeing within customer experiences, specifically for content. And earlier today, I haven't been to all the sessions, but I'm sure you talked about many of these different challenges. Well, there's many different touch points for this content to go. You're unable to find the content. So I think in the previous session, we heard a lot more about metadata and tagging, finding the right assets, one of the key pieces. If you don't do that, what are you going to do? You're going to duplicate that asset all over again. And overall, what we're seeing is the cost and the time as we start to introduce these challenges is getting much more complicated, much more difficult. So the way that we look at this is, can we start to tap into artificial intelligence intelligently to essentially stem that curve, right? We don't want the cost to continue to rise. Our budget is not typically rising, so we need to tap into this technology to do just that. So in order to do that, there's one simple way that I would encourage you to think about your content workflows is, to think about the full content lifecycle. And in many cases, you can source and create content from many different sources. You can pull that in to essentially manage that content in some sort of repository. You have many teams probably working in different regions, different parts that are assembling that content from various different sources. Maybe adding a bit of personalization on there and then delivering that. And then that's the experience that we get. We all know that data and insights can also influence back into our creation workflow. So you think about this engine, if you will, that we can create. The North Star that we would want to create, if you think about this from, the content vision, we're in year 2020 now, if we're in year 2050, the ultimate dream is some world where you can source content, create content from anywhere, put it into an engine, and then out comes the experience. The content creates itself, the content writes itself, it assembles, it does all the great things that you want to do in the middle, which we know we're spending quite a bit of time to do. But we know that that system is not quite there yet. One day, 2050, we're not going to have to do anything other than hit a button, and then the magic content comes out, and it's the right experience for the right person at the right time. But instead, can we break down these workflows and look at specific steps within these workflows to add in the right intelligence to accelerate these workflows that we do today? So for that, what we're recommending is, can we tap into the power of AI to embrace creative intelligence? So think way upstream, when content is first getting written, shot, put together. Can we embrace creative intelligence to help those content creators create much more efficiently? Can we leverage content intelligence so we can identify, share, collect, organize those assets those content pieces, those blocks of text, everything much more easily. And then can we unlock intelligent experiences? Our customers are coming to us from many different channels, many different expectations. They're searching for the right content on those endpoints. Can we not only expose that to them, but make that experience much more intelligent? So we'll talk about these three pieces today, starting with embracing creative intelligence and, really reaching out to think about what can we do to make the lives of those content creators better. Because we know that there's certain things that in life that most creative people don't enjoy. And I think one piece that we can probably take is mundane, repetitive tasks should not be one of them. I think, we know that if you're writing, if you are taking an image and creating the right content to inspire somebody for a campaign, that's the creativity piece that you want to really inspire you. But the mundane tasks after that of preparing that asset or preparing that content for all the different pieces that you need to do, those are the areas where we are focusing some of our energy with Adobe Sensei. So you start to think about your time-consuming task of, removing the right piece to focus it. And this one, there's an image, there's a video where, can we apply AI here directly in so the creative user doesn't even have to think about some of these incredibly time-consuming tasks to make the right assets. But also upstream, you're thinking about those end users as well. So, one is, there are certain things in life that normal everyday people don't enjoy. And then I'll bring a different example in here where we've seen the idea of like filling in paper forms is also not one of those things. And many of us are doing this constantly. It's not the best experience ever. And then you think about that experience for the person who's filling that form, for an organization that needs to manage that experience to get those pieces in. Quite a bit of effort involved in that, and you literally need an army of people to get this working right. So an example here, working with a top insurance company where they have 17,000 of those paper type forms. It's incredibly slow to get that experience into a digital transformation mission. So one of the technologies that we invested in was, can we accelerate the process of converting those paper forms, using that same PDF technology that we talked about before, into this newer form? So it's a newer format to receive that experience. So, start to think about that creativity upstream in a very different way of transforming that team so you can accelerate the way that you do, you capture information. You think about text, you think about video, you think about imagery into the process. So next, I would say we'll think about leveraging content intelligence. And when we think about content intelligence, one of the key things that we often think about is, can I make this block of text, image, this video smart? So essentially, content can find itself, right? And we want to make sure it's exposed to the right person at the right time, internal to your organization. We don't necessarily want to go and create a new asset. We don't necessarily want to duplicate any content or be slow to market because it's costly and it takes much more time. So we've seen many different demos of content tagging and things like that. But I want to take a step back and think about artificial intelligence. Think about, well, how did we get here? We know that our artificial intelligence is applying to this technology, but we need our content discovery to be much more faster and much more specific. So let's take a look back at where we've been with artificial intelligence. And this has been not a new topic. It's been around for decades. Look at going all the way back to the 1950s, where we've seen this done in research, but none of that really took off until the research started to take off in the late 2000s, where we started to begin to look at the lens of machine learning. Can we start to take data and start to apply these to problems much more intelligently? And then we took another step into deep learning. So then, can we have these new algorithms that are going to really peer in, start to understand, start to think differently. And I give a couple examples to kind of make these a little bit more real. Right. So the old way we used to do what we call like expert systems, where we would go in and think about this picture of an image of this person here, where we wanted the system to identify a face, and we would actually catalog and tell the system, well, a face has two eyes, one nose, one mouth, teeth, two ears, and this is a face. And we're running a quick test on that and running through the algorithm, and then everything is going great until we get a new image like this. And then we say, is this a face? The system says no. But everyone looking at this right now says, of course this is a face. I can see this is a face. Well, the system says, well, this doesn't have any ears. And it can't possibly be a face. There's no way that it can be a face. So then we have to go back and then, update the model, and then hopefully we can catch it because this person has hair over their ears. So that's the right thing to tag. So with deep learning, the idea was to take a different approach. Can we just tell the model essentially nothing? Just give it a bunch of weights and feed the system with a ton of content, many different pictures, and then essentially teach the system to see. The system is going to, after we feed the system with many different data points, then it'll start to cluster and understand that there's different entities there. And then we can go in there and label that say, hey, you know what, this is a face. And it'll begin to learn and adapt and understand this general concept that we know, that we were taught as a child, is a face. So essentially what we're doing is teaching the system to think as much like a child thinks, and then learn from that. So, we've been on a tier with these type of technologies, and we start to think about where are these technologies going from here? And we're starting to see that they're getting even smarter. So, we've solved the problem of detecting faces, detecting people, but it's getting even sharper. So, one of the things that we want to do in terms of our customer experience workflows is not only detect, when certain faces are within an image, but maybe we want to detect when there's certain individuals. And then we say, well, why do we want to do that? So some of the key use cases that we've seen has been, well, I'd like to understand when we take pictures of our CEO or our CFO, what images that they're in. So they're across our site, our digital property. We know what pages that they're on. What happens if there's a change in leadership? Can we find those pages very easily and then change and put the right person on there? Another example that we've seen is when this technology starts going even deeper, it starts to help the customer experience even more. Well, let's give a few more examples. We're getting even deeper into understanding what specific products that are captured in these images. So we know, in many cases, no one's going through all the work of doing the right metadata, attaching the right person to an image, the right product to an image, or even the right brand to an image. And then you start to think, okay, well, what kind of value can you get from that? So there's a few use cases. So the obvious one is, from the team that's searching the back office, you can easily identify and find the right piece of content. But then let's get even more intelligent. And what happens on that external experience? Well, if we know that this model, who we just showed, is selling this product, we can start to perhaps use that data to know that maybe this model is actually much more effective at selling this product than others. So there's sort of another idea, that another use case that some of our customers are looking to leverage with this type of technology. So it's not just about finding the assets, but when you start to think about those experiences, and if you understand content intelligence and how this content can be relevant towards those external experiences, and you apply those towards new and interesting use cases. Next, well, what's in a color? So AI is getting much more precise at extracting and understanding what type of content is within an image or a video, specifically color. So take this example here, where we're working with a consumer packaged goods company, where with them, brand and color is incredibly important. To the tune of millions a year. They know that their colors that they use within their ads has a meaningful effect to their bottom line. And one of the things that they want to do is, can they use this for brand governance or compliance to understand that, well, if we know that this powerful ice pop orange, we want to make sure that 30% of the image that we're displaying contains that orange. So we can make sure that in all our campaigns, it reinforces the brand value, and then it also does the business effect that we want it to have. So this next level of AI is, not that far for the future. It's actually here now. And you'll see that start to set you up for the next piece that we'll talk through, which is more around unlocking intelligent experiences. Now, we've been in many situations where, we've done all the work where we have a lot of assets, a lot of content, a lot of site experiences, a lot of different people who are working to assemble, to pull in content from many different sources, repurpose content from many different places. And, without that, it's without that whole army behind the scenes, you're not in a position to create that full end-to-end customer experience that you want to create. From awareness to discovery to that deeper level of engagement, to the point when your customer is engaging with your products or services, to the post-sale experience, where you want to make sure that you're maintaining that same storyline that you were telling them when you sold the product. When they're looking into the documentation to understand more, and then in many cases, we're seeing, one of the biggest sources of revenue is from continued sales. And we capture a customer and then keep them over the lifetime. Can they get to success with the current products that they have? So what that means is that's a lot of content getting created. So a lot of content getting generated and put out there. And, in this example, this is from a manufacturer. They said, well, we have 140 possible iterations for any given SKU, any given product. They have thousands of SKUs. And so they've created all this content. But then one thing that you look at this particular slide and you start to notice that you start to think about all these different form factors. And if you're a tech person like me, and you love new gadgets and new experiences, you probably saw the news that, well, look at all these great experiences, and who knows what Samsung or Apple, for example, is going to have another press conference in a week or two. They're going to announce some new device. How am I going to ensure that my content is going to be available on those experiences? So we've invested in some key use cases to enable that. So one of the key pieces that we invested in is smart cropping for imagery. So the whole idea is, can we have Sensei or artificial intelligence take a look at a specific image? In this case, you see this model sitting on the chair on your left, and identify what is the important subject in here, and then crop that experience so that it shows up right on that new device. And I think the key thing that was requested here is can we do this non-destructively? Because we don't know what that new device is going to be when it comes out to the market. We don't know if it's going to be experienced. We don't know if it's going to be for our key segment or not, and they're going to be on some new 12-inch or 42-inch or other weird form factor that we haven't even quite thought of. How can we make sure that we're not going back to the creative team to create a new image, write some new text, shoot a new video as well? Video is one of those key areas as well that we've been looking at too. If you look at video, the level of engagement to explain a product, to excite someone about a brand, the amount of video that we've seen usage go up within our business has gone up about 2.5 times over last year. So it's an incredible amount of demand that we're seeing in terms of streaming videos and using videos in digital experiences. And the same thing applies there, where video experiences for the last few years have been incredibly boring, where they're just embedded inside a regular web page or In some cases, you embed it inside a mobile app, but it's not taking advantage of that full real estate, which most of us right now, you're probably even holding onto your phone in one of your hands and consuming some video through that. So we need to make sure that when we're creating these experiences for customer endpoints, we're taking advantage of that full video experience. Many of us are holding onto our mobile devices in many cases up to 8 hours per day. That's almost another lifetime in terms of how much we're actually working on our phones. So we can expect our customers are going to be doing that throughout their customer journey, whether it's pre-sale or post-sale. They're going to be engaging with us in mobile. We need to make sure we can leverage the content to do that. So then, if we know these technologies are out there, how can we facilitate even more meaningful experiences? So I'll give an example here where we start to see, like, how can we start to leverage and tap into content intelligence to start to make much more engaging experiences. Now, this is, one of the key things that we've probably seen before. I'll start with a retail example, but we can expand it to many other different use cases where, someone is browsing a particular website, and you can say in this case, the person sees this, beautiful flowery dress that they like, and then they're often clicking through that. And, one of the ways that, many different technologies work today, they're doing personalization and they're trying to just throw blocks of content towards the user. But the key piece is, which is kind of crazy, is a lot of the personalization technology out there has no idea that what they're personalizing is, or what they're trying to show to that user is a flowery dress. Maybe this person likes flowery dresses. Can you actually identify other flowery dresses that are within your digital property, within your digital repository? Now, this is an example with image, right? Where you can look at color composition and other pieces, but the same type of thinking can apply to text or keywords or products or other patterns in your designs. So you start to generalize that approach and you think about the way that you apply the AI to maximize the usage on that use case. So, the next piece we often talk about is, the power of text. So the idea is, can we start to improve our understanding of a block of text by using artificial intelligence? Now, many of our systems today, we'll take our block of text, we'll put it into the system, and we do a basic keyword search. But do we actually tag that piece of content so we know that this particular article is about COVID-19 or employees or work from home or coronavirus or the higher level entity, the higher level topic that's happening in this block of text? And then if you think about how powerful that can be for, many different content authors who are creating many different articles or many different blocks of text that are going to different sites or different documents or different places. Can you not only improve discoverability, but can you also improve what content people see when they're moving around? So if they know they're interested in a certain topic, the power of that tag becomes that much more powerful. So, one of the key areas that, we're talking about today that the team is working on is, can we start to leverage the same technology for our XML technology? Can we use that as part of our content authoring experience? So I know many of us, we don't automatically tag all of these pieces in the system today. Can we do that directly within the product to enhance the findability of those assets, to enhance the way those assets get delivered on external experiences, to enhance the customer experience? So, these technologies have broad applicability across, images and videos, and we're spending lots of time there. But when you start to think about text and the power of text, the possibilities start to get endless. So, one more example, and then we'll wrap up, is you start to think about unlocking that power of text, then that puts us in an excellent position to start to feed into one of the other interesting emerging touch points for customer experience, that post-process, that post-sale experience around self-service that many of us are trying to do, not only to drive down costs, but we know that building that post-sale customer experience hits the top line. Those customers come back, they buy more, they're more engaged, they stay with you longer. And can we essentially unlock that content into the knowledge base to feed into that chatbot engine, and then reuse the content that we're already creating, so that chatbot experience that many of us are already engaging with on many different customer service sites has a richer customer content base to respond from. Right now, if you think about it, that content is locked away in our DMS systems, in our DAMs, in our content repositories. With the right tagging, can we unlock that and make those available within the chatbot engines and then deliver those? Within the chatbot engines themselves, they've been working on the natural language processing, the right responses, the right workflows that don't necessarily need to be hard coded in, and you start to see the customer experience evolve. So with that, I think I'll close on, we've seen that AI is everywhere that we look, many different experiences that we're seeing, we interact with every day. And I think the challenge just goes back out to you is how can you start to employ and start to access, start to use, this technology beyond the experiment and start to target real customer facing use cases that's going to change the way that your customers interact with your brands and essentially change the way that we work. So one piece I'll call out to, because it's we're thinking about the keynotes, and then tomorrow morning just help you gear yourself up for some pieces that are going to be really exciting. Is look forward to tomorrow morning's keynote. We'll have Lonnie Stark, part of our who's actually leads our Adobe Experience Manager business for product management as well as product marketing. She's going to talk about transforming the content world in a chaotic world. There's a lot going on right now. When you think about what's happened in the last, 6 to 9 months, the world has completely changed, and the structure and insights are going to be even more important as we build out these digital first customer journeys. Okay. All right. So with that, I'll conclude. And I will stop sharing.
Great job, Elliot. Elliot, do you see Sensei and Adobe AI being part of effectively every Adobe application? Just that push toward getting that automation put into all the different products?
Yes. So that's one of the key things that we've done over the last couple of years. Is the whole idea was to embed the technology directly into all of our applications. So whether you're using Photoshop to select an asset, using Document Cloud to read a PDF, or using Adobe Experience Manager to find an asset, that's the key drive. What you'll see happen is, those AI, those pieces we're going to make even more accessible, so our partners can build even more pieces around that. But that's the core idea, because what we want to happen is, we know many of our customers don't have the staff, the expertise, the time and budget as well to build these pieces out themselves. So can we do it naturally in every single one of our products?
Yeah. I think back to using the first few versions of Photoshop and just the hours that were spent masking individual images or frames of video and things like that. You're working thousands of times faster now than you had to back then.
Yeah, exactly. And what we've seen happen is, we're working on 10 times as much content. The creative teams have even more pressure to create content, so they're trying to source it and come from many different places and pulling contractors. But the speed at which we need content delivered and the way that our consumers are consuming content, the way the appetite, it's going off the charts in terms of what we're seeing come through the platform on a daily basis. So, the problem that we're seeing is the challenge of how can we help automate and assist those creatives much more upstream, so they're not doing all those tasks over and over again, those manual tasks just to get something out the door.
Absolutely, yeah. And if I just to give just one example from the Adobe DITAWORLD website, we have all these speaker images. From each speaker, there's an image on the start page and on the speaker bio page. Now, just isolating the head of the speaker from the background and putting it on a consistent black background so that all the images have a nice, consistent look and feel. That would have, years ago, that would have taken me probably weeks to do that for 30 speakers, or at least days, with a lot of manual small work, and with a new select subject functionality in Photoshop. It's so precise and so good that you can just isolate the person, even if the background is relatively complicated and fuzzy and has a lot of details, and extract it into a new layer and then put a black layer behind that. And it's really amazing to see how that AI technology has developed. Really time saver for creatives. It's really good.
So imagine a world where that selection is happening much faster now for the creative who's in that tool. And some of the things I just talked about today, of even just identifying that there's a subject in that person, in that asset. And now we can start to think about workflows where that happens automatically, and you start to do that in batch across the board without the creative going in there doing them one by one, even with that new AI powered tool. So the scale that these tools and these technologies can take us in the future is going to be unprecedented. Absolutely. And you can start to think about areas where in the past where you think about certain digital experiences that you wouldn't even attempt because you thought it was so labor intensive.
Yeah,
it's going to become second nature and natural to those who get it.
Yeah,